Hello everyone, this is Baisakhi and today we have an amazing guest with us. I'm sure you all have heard of the famous Anita Moorjani. I'm so honored to have you here. Take out your time and give me this opportunity to converse with you. Thank you so much for that.
So welcome.
And Anita Moorjani needs no introduction. She has had the most magical, wonderful, amazing life story to tell and blow your mind away. She has been in between life and death, and her work is towards transcending consciousness on the planet. And she is doing this marvelous work. She's helping people to get over their fear of death, get over diseases naturally, and to empower yourself from within. And she's been on the other side. She has had terminal cancer and she healed it completely naturally without any chemotherapy or radiation therapy. And that's why her story is so amazing, because she nearly died from that illness, and then she crossed over. She met her deceased father and her best friend who had passed away before her, and then they actually told her that it was not her time yet, which is very interesting because we all think that death is something that happens that we can't control. But you know, she had the choice to actually come back or stay on the other side. So this concept that death is a choice and we can choose to come back to life to finish our work or stay on the other side is fascinating. So I won't go on and on with this story because all her work and her books tell the full story. I'm sure you would like to check it out. Her work is in her website, anitamoorjani.com, and she has written two amazing books. One of them is called Dying to Be Me, and the second book is called What If This Is Heaven? We all want to go to heaven. We are all trying to escape this physical plane and go somewhere else that is heaven. But she is saying that this place, this earth, is heaven for us. So do go to her website. She also has a YouTube channel. Check out her work. Get a copy of her books. And I believe she is now working on her third book, right?
Yes.
What is the name of your third book?
It's called Sensitive is the New Strong.
Wow, I love that. You know, I can imagine, because now that, you know, we are connected with our spirits, it is valuable to be sensitive.
Yes.
And it is actually a strength, not a
Yes.
weakness, you know.
Yes.
So would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the reason for my new book is because when we look at a lot of the problems in the world, I believe it's because we have valued brute force, might is right, survival of the fittest.
Right.
Those are what we consider strengths.
Right.
Whereas when someone is sensitive, empathic, they're being told that they're weak.
Right.
We get taught that no, you have to be tougher, you have to be meaner. We live in a dog-eat-dog world.
Right.
But look at the world we've created as a result.
I know.
We've created a competitive world where we spend more money on weapons to kill each other rather than feed each other.
Wow.
We value those traits more than empathy, sensitivity, charity. Those things are all seen as weaknesses. And we could be at the brink of our own extinction.
Right.
Unless we change, because we worry about climate change and all this stuff, but it's not just climate change, it's us killing each other, it's us
Yes.
pulling the trigger on the nuclear weapons.
Oh my
We're
God.
spending money and technology on that instead of feeding each other and nourishing the people of the planet.
And think about how much money we spend on those military,
Yes.
just weapon testing, and then we have people in Africa, in Asia dying, like kids dying because they don't have food to eat.
Exactly.
So,
and it's a big subject because a lot of it is because of corrupt governments, but then corrupt governments also, it's because they value that power much
Yes.
more than sensitivity.
Yeah, that power is something we should talk about,
Yes.
because I think that brings us to our conversation, because I was asking you the other day, everyone here is trying to be better than themselves, better than others, do more, have more, this rat race, like you said, dog eat dog
eat dog
kind of
world,
thing,
yes.
So what do you think is being better? Like, in your perception, what is being better?
So I actually think that going back to our natural state is the best thing we can do for ourselves, because the problem is when we constantly believe we need to do more, be better, work harder, improve ourselves constantly, we feel that the message we're sending ourselves is that we are fundamentally flawed at our root.
Wow,
That's
I love
what
that.
we're constantly, it's like, oh, we beat ourselves up and we say, I gotta do better, I gotta do, oh, I got this wrong, what more can I do? How can I learn more? Why am I not getting this? I say to people, do the opposite. Stop doing and start undoing and release
Wow.
who you really are at your soul.
That's amazing.
Because your soul is not flawed. It's never flawed. Your
Right.
soul comes here perfect.
That is great. You know why? Because every person that I meet, most people say nobody is perfect. And I would like to believe that everybody is perfect, what you just said, right?
Exactly. And it doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but making mistakes is part of being human. And then you
Right.
learn from your mistakes and you move on. But when you learn from your mistakes, it's literally like, oh, okay, this happened, that's terrible, apologize, own them, move on. But I think where we get trapped is we're constantly trying to be better than the next person.
Right.
Rather than find out who we are, what are our gifts, what comes
Yeah.
naturally to us. So I usually use an analogy to explain this so that I can really get the point across. Michelangelo, the sculptor, the artist
Right.
who used to carve these beautiful statues of angels
Yes.
from blocks of marble.
Right.
And he used to carve these blocks of marble, and these beautiful statues of angels would appear. And so one person said to him, how do you do that? Like, you don't have drawings or plans and you just carve and there's this beautiful angel.
Yeah.
And he said, the angel is already there in the marble. I just chip away at what is not part of the angel and set it free.
Wow.
That's what I want people to know. Your soul is already a perfect angel. So instead of constantly accumulating by saying, I need to do this, I need to get this, you're actually doing the opposite. You're adding the marble.
Right.
I'm inviting you to chip away at what is not you and set your soul free.
Wow, I really like that metaphor you used about the block of marble where the statue is already there and you chip away the things that you don't need. I think in our life, like, we have accumulated a lot of belief systems that don't work, a lot of cultural conditioning and programming that are actually harming us than
Yeah.
helping us. So I think those are the things we need to chip away, right?
Yes, exactly. Chip away at whatever is not you, and everything in you that makes you feel, I have to do more, be better. I have to be better than that person.
Right.
I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. All those things we can let go of and just say, but who am I? What did my soul come here to do? What is my
Yeah.
soul's purpose?
Yeah, so everybody has a unique path, right?
Yes.
So if we are constantly comparing ourselves with others, like competing with others, then we are actually losing our own path, and we are trying to be on someone else's path or meet someone else's expectations.
Yes.
And that can cause diseases, right?
Diseases, depression, all kinds of things.
Which is happening in our society today so much more than ever before, right?
Yes, and I think it's no coincidence that through mass media, advertising, social media, more and more people are feeling inadequate.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that feeling is so painful. Like, yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think about this self-improvement obsession that human beings have come up with? Like, it's some kind of at a place of self-rejection or self-abandonment.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, without realizing it, well-meaning people, without realizing, they miss the point of self-improvement.
Right.
And
right.
they think purely in terms of the physical. I have to improve. I have to improve how I look. I have to improve my job. I have to be better.
Yes, exactly.
But to me, it's not about self-improvement. It's about self-discovery.
Wow. Yes, you said that. You know, we are here to know who we are.
Yes.
Not to live someone else's definition of who we should be, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So it really is. So I believe in self-discovery. I tend not to promote self-improvement. Even in the work I do, everything I talk about, I always like to tell people it really is about getting back to your authentic self. It's about setting your soul free. It's about discovering your soul's purpose, why you came here, what was your intention for living this life. It's not about improvement, being better, doing more.
Yeah, and from that space, like when we are there soul searching and discovering, from that space we can make efforts towards being better at what we do and things like that. I think that is more in alignment with who we are.
And it comes more naturally because then it comes from a space of authenticity.
Yes.
You know, like you might discover, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm a speaker, I'm a writer, whatever. And then you're like, because you love to do it from a place of passion, you improve on it. You might take classes, you might do that. But it's coming from this place of passion. Right now you have a lot of people who come more from the place of obligation or competitiveness. And then when they don't get there, they feel inadequate and they get depressed.
And they feel like they have failed.
They feel they have failed, yes.
You know, I can so connect with that story because I was there a few years ago. I was in a career that I didn't like and I was doing things that, you know, I never enjoyed. And I remember during my university days, I was always confused and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then there was this expectation from my family, from my parents that, you know, I should be in a particular career, doing a particular thing. And I was so lost that I even got very sick. And it took me years to figure out what I really want to do, you know. And I think we can cut that time if more people can tune into their inner selves and find out what they really want to do and pursue that.
Yes, 100%. You know, it's unfortunate that a lot of our cultures actually create all this programming and conditioning that we later, so the first 20 years of our life we get conditioned by our culture, then we spend the next 20 years undoing everything that our culture has
You
done.
just said that, you know, I think this is something you should all take from this conversation, that more than learning things, we actually need to unlearn a lot of the things that we have picked up, which may be garbage, which we don't need, you know, and then that way we can really figure out what we came here to do. And that path brings us a lot of inner joy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
At this point, I want to talk a little bit about emotions, you know, because I think our whole physical life experience is dictated by our emotions, the way we feel. Although it's a physical experience, we experience it internally. But emotions can be very tricky. Like I have heard that, you know, if you suppress your emotions, you can get a disease. If you express them, especially your negative and difficult emotions, it can cause a lot of destruction. It can create separation. People may not like it. And I constantly see that people are rejecting their emotions, you know. But everything is emotions. What would you suggest? Like, how can we deal with our difficult emotions?
So that's a great question. So first of all, I would want people to accept their emotions. So if somebody has a fiery temper, they have to accept that about themselves first.
Right.
They really do. Because exactly as you say, two things. One is if you suppress your fiery temper because you don't accept it, you say, no, I got to control it, you suppress it, it can cause disease.
Yeah.
If you express it, it can cause destruction in a relationship. So the first thing really is to realize, and once you've named it and accepted it, then it becomes easier to do something about it. Now, so the first issue that we have is that most people are in denial about their emotions, and the reason they deny them is because we judge them.
Right.
If someone has a bad temper, but they've been brought up to believe that having a bad temper is really bad. Like, let's say if you're a woman, let's say if you're an Indian woman, and you lost your temper at a young age, and your parents said, girls don't have bad tempers, it looks ugly on a girl or something. You can imagine something like that being said.
Right. It happens all the time.
All the
We
time.
are trained to be demure and docile and never to speak up, and that doormat kind of a thing. So what do you say to that?
So then so it's not the temper that causes the disease or the destruction, but it is the conditioning
and the suppression.
Yes, it's the conditioning that having a bad temper is bad.
Right.
And then you start judging that.
Right.
So every time your temper shows up, you're like, oh, that's bad, I gotta suppress it.
Yeah.
That's what causes the disease. It's like, oh, I better not do that, I gotta suppress it.
Yes.
But if you are able to realize, like even just by me telling you this, that if you are able to realize that I was born this way, I am a soul, I am a product of the divine.
Right.
And so if I was born with a bad temper, there is a reason for it. It just has to be channeled correctly.
Yeah, I think you've just hit the nail here. It's not that we should suppress the anger, because we can actually get diabetes from it.
Yes.
But we should channel it. And maybe towards something creative. I don't know. What is your idea of channeling the anger?
So the thing is that something like a bad temper is a label.
Yes.
All that means is that you have a fiery spirit.
Yeah.
So you reframe it.
Right.
You say, wait a minute, why? What are the situations I lose my temper? So when you're willing to accept it, you can then go inward and understand it. But if you reject it and say it's bad and you suppress it, you won't even understand it.
And you will be at a war with yourself.
You'll be at a war with yourself, and that's what causes disease. Now, when you're at a war with yourself and you suppress it, it explodes when you least expect it to, and that's what causes the destruction.
Totally true.
And
totally.
And then you say, oh my God, the temper is so bad, it's caused that destruction.
Yeah, and you may not even connect it with the past, like, because I have been suppressing it for so long that it's now coming out in such a destructive way.
Yes, you won't connect that. You will judge it even more and suppress it even more, and you'll think, I really have to master this. But instead, if you said, people have said I have a bad temper, I wonder what that is, I wonder what it's about. And you'll realize, oh, having a bad temper means I flare up. It means I have this anger. It means I have this pent up, this fiery energy that obviously my soul came here with that fiery energy for a reason.
Wow.
And
I love that little, that slight turn of, shift. It's in the end, it's all how we look at it, right?
It is, because it takes a fiery energy to go out and stand up for people and change the world and make a statement.
It creates the passion.
It creates the passion.
Wow.
So once you can see it and channel it and you stop judging it, it stops exploding in a destructive way, and it stops eating you inside. And you start to say, thank you for that fire. Thank you for that fire.
And I think that is a place of self-acceptance, right? Instead of coming from a place of self-rejection or self-hate, because I think that's the thing. Like, most people cannot deal with emotions because emotions are hard. But if they would give this new definition that you said, and if they would channel it, it would just become so much more creative, because We don't want everybody to be like, soft and
demure. The world wouldn't change. You would have the few people in power who are not like that, and everyone else would be followers.
Right.
We want everybody to be self-empowered.
Right. And leaders in their own lives. Right?
Leaders in their own lives. You see, the problem is, right now we think that if everybody becomes powerful, we kind of think, oh, we better not empower them, otherwise they will
become better than us.
They will become better than us. They will bully us or whatever. But the point is, if you are empowered, you won't let them do that to you.
Exactly.
Everybody becomes empowered in their own life.
And I think that's when we can achieve real balance.
Yeah.
Like even in relationships, there is so much power struggle. I think because of this, because we are scared of the other person's light.
Yes.
So we try to suppress them, we try to have power over them.
Yes.
Whereas I think if we share power, instead of trying to have the power over one another, we would have a more harmonious, connection with anybody for that matter.
100%. It's about, we have to stop being afraid of other people's light. And here's the problem. We are afraid of other people's light. This is what we see happening in the world. And people who are filled with light are usually the people who are more sensitive to the people around them.
Right.
And let's say you're filled with light and you want to bring light to the world. And when you're filled with light, but you're sensitive that, oh my gosh, me being light and uplifting makes these people feel threatened. And when you sense that's what they're feeling, you shrink.
Oh my God, that happens all the time to me because, when I see other people, like, they will just not understand where I'm coming from, then I will just shut it down. I do it all the time.
Yes, and so the people who are, you could say, the light bearers or the people who bear light, whenever they are surrounded by people who feel threatened by their light, they start to dim their light. Right. But unfortunately, our world needs more light. And when they do that, the ones who are actually spreading more darkness in the world, they get to rise.
And they get the power.
Because
by dimming our light, we are giving them more power.
We're actually turning the power over.
Wow. Yeah. You couldn't have said this better. I think everybody should internalize this thing that, when you shine your light, you actually help bring more light to the world. When you dim your light, you contribute to the darkness of the world.
And be happy for others who are shining their light. A lot of us have a tendency to feel envious and jealous.
Right.
But instead, be happy for them and know that the world is not limited. If they are flourishing and shining their light, it should be an inspiration that we can also. We can do it, rather than thinking, who are they to do it?
Yeah, it would be an example that we can follow, like a role model kind of a thing. And you are such a big role model in this because, I have followed your work for a long time and I absolutely love the way you share stories and you make such difficult concepts so easy for people to understand in such layman's terms. I think that is a great gift you have to share with the world, really. I want to go to another difficult topic.
Sure.
Because this topic is also very controversial. It's about ego. I personally feel that ego is not a bad thing because we need ego in the physical world to navigate life because in the absolute sense, we are all one and connected. But here in the physical life, ego gives us our sense of identity and also our sense of separation through which, we can understand ourselves more. But I have seen time and again, like spiritual teachers especially, make an enemy of the ego. They are always like against the ego. You have to get rid of your ego and you have to do this and that. And I think especially spiritual people, they become doormats and they get all walked over in relationships and connections, especially because they limit their ego. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, of course. I grew up also with that belief that we had to suppress the ego and the ego is bad and the ego is the enemy and the ego prevents you from advancing your lifetimes and all this stuff. And my parents used to take me to see spiritual teachers and gurus and all who had that same message about the ego. So I also suppressed my ego and became a doormat and everything.
Right.
But it was only when I crossed over, when I died, did I realize that no, there's a reason we have the ego. If the ego was so bad, why are we born with it? Why are we fighting something that's within ourselves?
Oh my God, this is exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, we are making an enemy of our minds. We are making an enemy of the ego. But God created us this way.
Exactly.
If we would deny it, we are actually denying aspects of ourselves.
Exactly. We're denying parts of ourselves. So the way I look at it, so I understand that, you know, probably what spiritual teachers mean is that, like, you know, don't be a jerk, to use an American term. Like, just, okay, don't be a jerk. But we don't have to say suppress your ego. But so the way I created a story or an analogy around it.
I love your stories.
Yeah.
Oh,
so the way I would explain it is that our soul, our spirit, is connected to everything. And if you imagine that when you're born, you are born with two like dials in your hands. Okay. And I wrote about this in What If This Is Heaven. But imagine if you were born with two, like a radio dial that goes from 0 to 10, 0 to 10. And imagine if in one hand, the dial is called ego, and in the other hand, the dial is called conscious awareness.
Okay.
And when you're born, imagine if both dials are turned at 10. Now, ego means, when it's turned at 10, it means you are fully in your ego, but conscious awareness is like spiritual awareness. It means, conscious awareness means being aware of everybody around you and the world at large.
Right.
So someone who is totally into conscious awareness is totally spirit. Okay. Someone who's totally into ego is totally physical and only knows of their own needs.
Okay.
But when we are on the other side, we are pure conscious awareness. Okay. We're like a pure 10
so that's when
conscious
the
awareness.
Yeah.
So when you get out of the body, you have no ego and you're conscious awareness. When you come into the body, you have to play with both conscious awareness and ego.
Right.
So you're born with your dial turned to 10 on ego, 10 to conscious awareness. This is what it looks like. A baby is hungry. A baby doesn't care about who's around them. They'll cry and scream. They don't care that they're disturbing someone, mommy's asleep, blah, blah, blah. I have my needs and I want it met, and I'm going to. That is ego.
Wow.
Beautiful. Yes, and conscious awareness is the same baby or toddler being aware that the person coming into the room is my mother. I can sense it just by my energy. Whoa. The baby, the toddler, sometimes can still remember the other side.
Yes.
The baby is very sensitive to energies around them.
Yes.
You know, if a stranger picks them up, they start to cry.
Yeah.
So the baby has very powerful conscious awareness.
Wow, and the baby is in perfect balance between the physical and the non-physical.
The baby has both. So when it's in pure ego, it's in pure ego. My needs need to be met. I don't care what anyone's doing, I'm going to demand it. And the other is 10 as well. Like, oh, I know that's my mommy. I'm gonna, And the baby is aware of who is good. A baby can even feel if there's tension in the house.
Yes.
You know, the baby reacts and grows accordingly. So the baby is full on both. Now think about as the child grows up, and if the child constantly gets told, don't be so demanding, be more considerate of other people, blah, blah, blah. Slowly, their ego dial, their own needs get turned down, down. Especially in certain cultures. I know in our culture, especially if you're a girl, yes. So the ego dial gets turned down, down, down as you grow, gets turned. The conscious awareness dial stays at 10. You're always told you have to think of other people. It's selfish to think of yourself. What happens is when your ego dial is at 10 and your conscious awareness, when your ego dial is at 0, and your conscious awareness dial is at 10, you become a doormat.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly thinking of other people and you're unable to meet your own needs.
Yes, and maybe those people would attract narcissists in
Exactly.
relationships who will constantly walk all over them, and they can never get their needs met, and they will be in this toxic connection, which will eventually lead them to some chronic illness or depression or unhappiness.
That's
and things
right.
like that.
But what is a narcissist? A narcissist is someone whose conscious awareness dial is at 0, but the ego is at 10.
Yeah.
So all they care about is their own needs, own needs. The one who is unable to fulfill their own needs, the one with the 10 conscious awareness dial, they're always thinking of others. And so if this narcissist is so needy, they will attract somebody who, they will, exactly, attract someone who will constantly fulfill their needs.
Yeah, you know that we attract our vibrations, right?
Yes.
So if we are overgiving, self-abandoning, self-sabotaging, then we will attract more people who will, you know, give us even worse experiences of that until we become conscious and we say, hey, I'm not getting anything met. You know, no needs of mine is getting met, and eventually, hopefully, we will break out of it. But some people cannot do that because of our cultural conditioning and belief systems that kind of cage women in these doormat roles, and they are like perpetually unhappy. And
yes, exactly. And so I always tell people that you need to embrace your ego as much as you embrace your conscious awareness. So if your conscious awareness, let's say, is at 5 or 6, your ego should also be at like 5 or 6. In other words, as much as you are doing for other people and the planet, you're also doing for yourself.
Yeah, and that is self-love, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it should be the opposite for the very egotistical people, like our politicians.
Exactly. So what I tell people is that there's a difference between embracing the ego and being egotistical.
Right.
So someone who is completely at a 10 for ego but a 0 at conscious awareness, that is egotistical. They need to watch their ego. But the fact that you are the type of person, like if you're listening to this video and you're the type of person to go to these spiritual teachings where they talk about transcending the ego, suppressing the ego, means that you are someone with high conscious awareness.
Right.
So you actually need to hold on to your ego, because the kind of people who have no conscious awareness and huge egos, they don't go to those spiritual teachings where they tell you have to suppress your ego. That message applies to like a general public, you know, like most of the people that are full of power and running the world, it applies to them. But they're not the ones listening to the message. The ones listening are the ones whose egos are already suppressed.
And then they are suppressing it more. And then they are losing themselves in the process.
So in fact, the people who have conscious awareness, you need to embrace your ego so that you can share that conscious awareness.
Awesome. Awesome. Like, I think this is what people should hear, because a lot of modern spiritual teachings, you know, gurus, there are so many of them in India especially, that preach this. And I've also been to some of those ashrams and spiritual retreats where they talk about this, and it never felt right to me.
They talk about suppressing the ego.
Yeah, all the time. And their first message is get rid of your ego, get rid of your mind. You know, the mind is a garbage bin. And that's really painful to know, because the mind can be such a wonderful tool to create our realities, to be creative, to be imaginative, and things like that.
Yes.
Right? So I would see it like, you know, if the mind is a bridge between the body and the soul, it's like we should always have one foot in the non-physical realm and one foot in the physical realm, so we can balance both the worlds.
Yes.
Right? That would be a ideal way to live life on the planet.
Yes, I feel that we chose, and that's what it felt like for me when I was on that side. I realized that even though that side is so beautiful, it's so amazing, there is an excitement about choosing to come to live in the physical. And it really is about bringing a piece of that here.
Right.
And what I'm finding, though, where people lose themselves is you have the people who consider themselves spiritual, who get rid of the ego and they renounce the world and they
Yes.
just want to live a spiritual life. But if that's what you wanted to do, there was no point in coming
Oh
here.
my God, that's what I always say. I'm
Yeah.
like, why would you be in the physical world if you
Yes.
would renounce life and stay in some cave,
Yes.
meditating all the time? Might as well be on the other side.
Exactly. And you can do that for short periods of time if you
Yeah.
need to.
To
But-
recharge and all that.
But to judge, there are people who feel that they are above all this and they judge all this as being superficial.
Oh,
And they're
I'm
like,
holier
just
than you. You know
Yes.
that mentality.
And my feeling is, but I chose to come here to immerse myself in it.
Exactly.
And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, where you have people who think we are purely spiritual beings. We're purely physical beings. There's nothing more. We die and it's over. They treat their lives that way. They treat their bodies that way.
Right.
And those are the people that feel that we have to win at all costs because this is the only shot we get at life, and
Right.
they believe they're purely physical and they don't see that there's something more. They're part of
Right.
a bigger plan, a bigger scheme. So you've got both ends. One end that sees as though we're purely physical beings, they debunk everything spiritual, they call it woo-woo.
Right.
And the other end where they think that that we have to renounce everything and we're holier than thou and this is all
Yeah,
superficial. My point is we have actually come here to experience both. This is why we have to have an ego and we have to have conscious awareness. We have to
Yes.
have both.
Yeah, that's very important because that conscious awareness can also bring out our intuition, our guidance, like, okay, this is my unique path, I want to do this. And at the same time, we can integrate, we can navigate the physical life.
Yes.
Because these spiritual teachers, when they renounce life, it's like they have a hard time navigating physical reality, navigating relationships especially. Because they have no boundaries, they have no definitions, there is no sense of separation, they cannot navigate relationships.
No, and that's why they cannot be immersed in the world. So they usually live in ashrams, temples, and places like that.
And then they don't have any of those physical life experiences because
Yes.
I'm sure it would be hard for them to reintegrate back into the physical life after denying and judging
Yes.
that all this is low vibrational and stuff like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's so sad because if you cannot balance, and if you have left the physical world and gone on to the other side, and most people actually consider them the gurus who have all the answers because they are meditating all the time and they have renounced this physical world or taken on the holy garb. Whereas, they are probably at a worse place, I feel, because they are not engaging in life, and in the messiness of life, I would say.
Yeah, they're not engaging in the messiness of life. But and for their time, they probably served and helped a lot of people.
Right.
And I feel that the world is changing. The world is getting smaller. Technology is changing us. People are traveling and cultures are integrating. But for their time, teachers, gurus, they all served the people of that time.
Okay.
And I think that, but now we're in a different era.
Right.
And
right.
it's also a different kind of energy because at one point in life, and it's again nobody's fault, even the gurus, I think they were groomed into that. They were
Yes.
trained into it, conditioned into it by their lineage.
Yeah.
And then the followers also were doing that. So it's not anybody's fault and not a judgment, but it is what is happening.
And it is still a programming.
Yes.
I feel it's a conditioning because I have seen in a lot of those spiritual centers, these gurus or their disciples who are in these holy garbs, who don't engage into relationships and all, and then I see how attracted they are to women and how attracted they are to some things, then they will reject themselves for having those feelings, and it's kind of painful because they cannot embrace their desires. They are always at a place of self-rejection.
Yes, and that is what I feel is sad, because if they were able to embrace their human emotions and desires,
Their humanity.
their humanity, and that's why we have that issue.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
because they haven't embraced
You
their
have said
humanity.
something very important because people need to know this. It's not easy, sometimes when we are in a lot of pain, we go to the gurus for answers, and sometimes they can actually mislead us with their own programming they are imposing on us, and we don't even stop to check if that resonates with our inner being because we are not connected with ourselves.
Yeah, that's why self-empowerment is so important. When you are feeling empowered, it doesn't mean you have to go it alone. It doesn't mean you can't go to a mentor, a teacher for help. But when you're empowered, you take the messages that resonate with you.
Exactly. You don't follow just any guidance blindly.
You don't follow it blindly.
Yeah,
exactly.
you see if it is true for you, and then you follow that.
Yes,
That
exactly.
is beautiful. That's how it should be, because we all come with an internal guidance system.
Yes.
And we should have the power to check with ourselves before we buy into any belief system, right?
Yes, exactly. We really need to be self-empowered enough to really just take what resonates with us.
Yeah, and that brings us to another very important topic which I feel the world needs to hear. I want to talk a little bit about religion. I have been all over the world. You have also been all over the world, and I'm sure you have seen people from different religious beliefs who are practicing different religious rituals, and it's always different, like from family to family, place to place, city to city, country to country. And still people are so caught up in their own religion that they think this is God, this is how it is, this is true. And I feel that religion is so fragmented. Like, in the same family, father goes to one church, son goes to a different church, wife goes to another church. If we talk about our Hindu religion, even in our religion in India, I have seen like Brahmins, Hindu Brahmins, Ayers, and Iyengars, like Vishnu and Shiva worshippers. They cannot accept each other in matrimonials because one of them is worshipping Vishnu, the other is worshipping Shiva, and both are actually Hindu gods.
Yes.
So it's crazy how
Yes.
this works. What would you say about religion?
So I know that death transcends religion.
Right.
Because when you die, you shed not only your physical body, but also all the beliefs. And what I realized was that religions are a path, but none of them are the one and only truth. They
Right.
are a path. Religions are not supposed to be dogmatic. They're not like something you use your brain or your mind and you say. It's not like a history lesson or a math lesson where it's factual, whereas we've taken it that way.
Yes.
We've
yes.
taken everything that we learn as factual, whereas the original teachers, and when I say the original teachers, whether it was Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, Shiva, the original teachers who tried to teach these things that we now carry on using, they were trying to get people into a place of feeling
the divine. Right.
within them.
Right.
And so, but their words have been misconstrued and taken as dogmatic.
Right.
That you have to learn this and this is the only way.
And then people fight and
Yes.
kill each other, or it comes in between relationships. And like, let's say you are a Christian and I'm a Hindu, and you believe in Jesus so strongly and I believe in my Krishna so strongly that we cannot find a way
Yes.
to commune with each other, and it
And in
creates
fact,
separation.
yes, and when people fight over religion, I feel they've missed the point of religion.
Right.
The whole point is about us coming together and feeling that unity, that soul, that connection, that God or the divine is within all of us. That's what each of them tried to teach in their own place and time.
Right, right. But I also have another question. I've heard in one of your videos where you said that on the other side, religion doesn't exist.
Yes.
And somehow I feel that even when people are connecting with the divine through their religion, it is still a different vision, a different form. Like, okay, people say Jesus can take you to God, or Krishna can take you to God, or Allah can take you to God. And I feel that even that is in a way limiting us.
Yes, so, you know, there is no religion on the other side because you don't need it.
Exactly.
You're there already.
Right.
You've reached. You're there. The religion is to help us, like religions had been created to help us to feel that connection to the all that is.
Right.
But we have misconstrued it, and instead of using it to feel that connection to all, we use it to divide us.
Yeah.
But also, just to elaborate a little on the second part of your question, let me just form my thoughts a little properly about this. So, if you use your religion to help you to get into that space, that feeling space, and you realize that this is the purpose of my practice, is to help me to get into that feeling space, then it's fine.
Right.
But the problem comes when you believe that this is
the
only way.
Right.
And you follow it to the T because you think that if I don't do this, I am somehow unholy or not doing it. So my point is, even if someone is not religious, but has developed their own practice,
right,
and can feel that and can feel the oneness, that is equally good and important. The thing that I find that people miss about religion when they leave a religion is they miss the community. They miss that they were part of a community.
Right.
So I understand that the religion brings a community, but people have to really realize that the other part of it,
right,
the part of following and practicing the religion, the test or the litmus test I tell people is, ask yourself, is that religion bringing you fear or love?
Wow.
That's the only question.
Yeah.
Is it bringing you fear or love? Fear means fear of the afterlife. It means separating from other people,
right,
anger and judgment towards people who don't believe that way.
Right.
That all goes into the fear category. Is your religion causing you to feel those feelings, or is your religion making you feel love and closeness to everyone?
Right.
That's the only thing you need to ask. And when people ask me, what is my religion? I say my religion is love. That's it. That's it. I don't need any other label.
That's beautiful. You know, because most people, even when they practice love through their religion, they tend to just stick within their own religion, and they don't actually want to connect usually with people from other religions. So even if that religion is bringing love in their hearts, they actually stick to their own religion, you know, and that kind of also I see it limiting, and then I feel maybe they haven't got the whole message. So I think your definition that love is your religion is probably the best religion that one can have. Okay, finally, one last question, because I think our audience would like to know this. I want to talk a little bit about relationships, because nowadays relationships are changing so much. The masculine feminine dynamics are altering, marriages are failing, people are using marriages to get visas here in the US. You know, it's kind of become more like an institution than the real meaning of having a connection or a union with someone else. Would you have some advice or thoughts on how we can better be in relationships, or what we should look out for when we are entering relationships with others?
I would say the first thing is to develop a relationship with yourself.
Okay.
That would be the number one thing. If you don't have a relationship with yourself, if you don't love yourself, then you will be looking to the other person and looking to see, okay, what can they give me?
Right,
You know, like
right.
what benefits do I get from being with that person? But when you have a relationship with yourself, what happens is that you are automatically attracted to other people who have a relationship with themselves.
Yeah, and that kind of brings balance in the connection instead of creating the power struggles that we talked about
Yes,
before.
then there's no competition between the couple, no power struggles. I have actually seen among people I know, couples, where you'll have a husband and wife that actually compete with each other.
Yeah, that
And
must be so terrible to live with, no?
yes, I believe it's like it can be quite tiring and
Yeah.
draining. Whereas where I feel very blessed in that I met my husband Danny at a point in my life where I was feeling very good about myself.
Wow.
So that was like perfect because I really was feeling whole and complete. I did have a very short phase of time that I felt that way. Outside of that phase of time, the people I attracted were not good for me.
Right.
But in that phase of time, that's when I met him, which was very blessed. But then I went through some ups and downs, and then we came back together.
Right.
But it's interesting that the one phase of time where I really was feeling whole and complete, like as if my life was full, whether I was in a space of I don't need a man in my life, I don't need to get married, I don't need a partner. I am whole and complete in my own, and whether I meet a partner or not, I'm still good. And it was in that space that I met
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, I totally agree with you, because when we come from that space of neediness and we are trying to escape our loneliness because we don't feel comfortable in our own skin, in our own company, is when we attract people who actually reflect back more of that loneliness. And then if you're married to them, you know, it's like even worse because you're not spending time with each other, and maybe that other person is never there for you, and then you can actually feel trapped.
Yes, you can, and you can attract people for the wrong reasons when you're
Yes.
feeling really needy. And not to say that people who have been needy and whatever have not attracted the perfect partner. Many people have.
Yeah.
But if I were to give somebody advice, I would say that first develop a relationship with
Wow,
yourself.
that's beautiful. One small thing, you know, this masculine feminine dynamics in relationships, the traditional roles that we have, which is changing dramatically and drastically nowadays. Do you have some comments on this energy that we have? Like, I know in the world we have a lot of masculine energy right now because most of our societies are coming from the patriarchal mindset.
Yes.
And what do you think? Like, how should the feminine react to that, or do you have some comments on it?
So I would want everybody to know, whether they're in a male or female body, that your soul has an energy that could be masculine or feminine, and it may not match your physical body.
Okay.
So basically, I know this is probably something that's harder for people to grasp, but I guess to make it easier, what I would say is that we have to stop assigning gender roles to people.
Right.
We have to stop doing that. We really have to stop assuming that certain jobs and certain things are for men only and others are for women only. I completely get that if it is something that requires physical strength, then you need somebody with physical strength. And it could be a physically strong, bigger built woman, or it could be a man.
Right.
But we have to stop delineating things by gender only. And so cooking in the house is not restricted to just women. Doing
Right,
laundry is not
right.
restricted to women. Nursing is not restricted to women. But culturally, especially many Asian cultures, still have a lot of judgment towards people that don't stick to their gender roles. And I think that men have it harder than women in this case.
Oh, really?
Because men who stay at home, take care of children, or do housework, or take a more subservient roles in the workplace, they get teased or laughed at and are
Right.
considered unattractive by women.
Right.
And that's not fair.
That's not
So
fair,
women
true.
have to step up and also honor that, honor
Right.
men who are willing to embrace their, you know, their willingness to take on a more supporting role.
Right.
We have to do that in the same way that we want men to embrace us when we take on roles that were typically male roles in the past. So we need to
Beautiful.
embrace both sides.
Right. I think we all come with the masculine and the feminine energy, right?
Exactly.
So I think we should all balance that within us, and then
Yes.
we can attract a balanced partner.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I also think, like, you know, sometimes I think, like, if I want to attract a partner, how I should go about it. And I feel like it can start with that soul to soul connection first, and you see if you have a connection with the other person instead of just trying to secure the connection.
Exactly.
Because I think a lot of women, like the way our society and cultural conditioning is, women don't allow themselves to relax in the connection, especially at the beginning. They are constantly worrying about when is he going to propose, when is he
Yes.
going to commit. And do you want to?
Yes, so we just need to relax and connect with them on a soul level.
Right, right.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because many people are always like, is he committing to you? Is he taking the next step? Is he doing? And the woman, like, she has to wait. She's like, when is he going to propose? And
Yes.
that's not a nice place to be in, right?
And for her, when she's in a more calm place herself, energetically, it will also be more attractive to the partner.
Right.
Whenever you raise your own energy, your own vibration, you're raising both or everyone around you.
Beautiful. I think that's a great place to stop today's conversation. We can go on and on the whole day because I absolutely loved conversing with you, and you have such wonderful creative ways to define everything. But I think we have to end this here, and I'm sure we can connect again in the future. Thank you so much for being here today with me and doing this chat with me. I value it and honor it so much. You can't imagine
Oh, thank
how
you.
happy I am to see you and to talk with you. So
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
yeah, so namaste.
Ah, namaste.